The cuffs snapped shut on her wrists like it was protocol, not prejudice. She was 13. Polite. Prepared. A backpack full of documents, not danger. But to them, a black girl with money was already guilty. She whispered, "Please, call my mom." And somewhere 23 floors above, a mother stopped breathing mid-sentence. The late autumn wind blew softly against her braids as Amara Collins, 13, stepped off the bus and stared up at the polished glass building of North Shore First Bank. She tightened the straps of her backpack, the weight of her grandmother's birthday envelope tucked safely inside. $800 in crisp bills. She'd saved every cent of it, planned for weeks, researched accounts, practiced what she'd say. Today wasn't about money. It was about growing up, independence, pride. She straightened her blazer, navy blue with the crest of Eden Hill Prep stitched on the chest, and walked with deliberate calm past suited strangers and marble columns into the silent chill of adult territory. The lobby smelled faintly of lemon wax and old money. Voices whispered in soft banking tones. Her shoes tapped quietly toward the help desk. Behind the glass partition sat Ms. Lauren Whitehall, a woman in her mid-40s, white, tightly wound in both posture and personality. Her lips thinned the moment her eyes lifted from the screen to see Amara, a black girl in uniform, alone, holding a thick envelope. The polished smile didn't come. The air shifted. "Yes?" Lauren asked, her voice sharp around the edges. Amara's nerves flared, but she smiled with warmth anyway. "Hi. I'd like to open my first checking account, please. I've brought everything I need." Lauren blinked. "Checking account?" Amara nodded, lifting her envelope with both hands, like it was proof she belonged here. "I'm 13. I have a school permission slip, my ID, savings records, and—" "13?" Lauren cut her off. Her voice grew louder. "And where exactly did you get all that money?" Amara blinked. "It's birthday money, and savings. My grandma—" Lauren leaned back in her chair and stared at Amara the way someone might look at a stolen handbag. "I'm going to call my manager." Amara's hands trembled slightly, but she held the envelope tighter. She'd read about this, heard her cousins whisper it in sleepovers. You dress well, speak soft, and still they see threat. She hadn't believed it, not in her world. Across the lobby, Marianne Cutler, the branch manager, white, 50s, pearls around her neck like a badge of superiority, emerged from her office with forced calm. Her heels clicked across the floor like a ticking clock. She looked Amara up and down before even greeting her. "Young lady," she began, "do your parents know you're here with this amount of money?" Amara kept her voice steady. "Yes, ma'am. I have written permission." She pulled out the neatly signed form. Marianne didn't even glance at it. Her eyes were locked on the envelope like it was contraband. "I don't buy it," she said flatly. "That much cash? From a kid like you? Sounds like something shady." "Please," Amara whispered. "Can I call my mom?" Marianne's jaw tightened. "Number we're contacting authorities." And just like that, Amara's world, a world of prep school, good manners, and quiet dreams, tilted. She didn't understand. She had done everything right. Everything. But as Marianne turned and picked up the phone, Amara realized something much worse than misunderstanding was happening. This wasn't about rules. It was about something older, colder. Something she'd only read about in history books. And now she was living it. The manager hadn't even seen her ID. She'd already made up her mind. And in that moment, as Amara stood trembling beside a marble counter built with wealth not meant for her, she understood. This was never just about money. It was about what they believed a girl like her could be, and what they refused to let her become. The phone hadn't even finished its first ring when Amara felt her throat tighten. She stood there, small, respectful, prepared, while Miss Cutler spoke into the receiver like she was reporting a crime in progress. "Yes. I have a minor here attempting to deposit what I suspect is stolen cash. Please send someone over." "Stolen?" The word hit Amara like ice water down her spine. Her hands dropped to her sides. She wanted to speak, to protest, but her voice was drowning in confusion, in humiliation. "I have proof," she whispered, her voice trembling now. "I have all my documents." But Cutler had already turned her back. Across the lobby, people had started to notice. A couple in suits glanced toward her. A man in line frowned, looked down, pretended not to hear. The silence around her grew thicker. No one asked questions. No one intervened. Amara reached into her backpack with shaking fingers. She laid out everything on the counter like she was showing her soul. School ID, savings statements, birthday cards with handwritten notes. But to the woman across from her, none of it mattered. "Anyone can print fake statements," Lauren muttered from her desk, arms crossed. "You think we're stupid?" Amara swallowed hard. "Please, just call my mother. She can explain everything." "Sure," Cutler said coldly. "That's what they all say. Then the story changes 10 times. It's always someone else's money, someone else's fault." The bank doors opened behind her with a hiss of hydraulics. 2 police officers stepped in, one tall and grim, the other younger, female, eyes already scanning the room with practiced suspicion. Amara turned, breath catching. She had never been arrested. She didn't even know if she could be. She was just 13. The male officer approached first. "We got a report of suspicious activity involving a minor?" he asked. Cutler nodded like she'd caught a fugitive. "Yes, officer. She claims this money is hers, but she's being evasive. I don't think it's hers." Amara's lips parted. I wasn't. Please just look at my ID." "Ma'am," the female officer said sternly. "Hands where we can see them." Amara froze. Her palms were already empty. Open. "I didn't do anything wrong," she choked. She looked around again. No one moved. A woman by the waiting chairs looked away. A man pretended to scroll his phone. No one said a word. The tall officer stepped forward, hand on his belt. "We'll sort it out at the station." The female officer reached for her cuffs. No, please," Amara begged, tears now blurring her vision. "Just call my mother. Please. I texted her. She'll be here. She's coming. Please." But the cuffs snapped cold against her wrists. The echo of the metal clink shot across the marble like a gunshot. And in that moment, her shoulders shaking, head bowed, Amara learned the first brutal truth of her world. You can be perfect, and still not be safe. She had spoken clearly. She had come in peace. She had done everything right. But it had never been about what she did. It was about what they saw, and what they chose not to see. As the officers turned her toward the exit, her phone buzzed in her pocket. One last desperate vibration, unseen by them. A text had gone through. To the only person in the world powerful enough to stop this. Her mother. 23 floors above the city, Dr. Celeste Collins stood at the head of a walnut conference table, back straight, voice poised, effortlessly navigating a multi-million-dollar merger. Her diamond watch caught the light as she gestured to a slide on the screen. Projected revenue, fiscal alignment, institutional equity. Then her phone buzzed once. A quiet vibration, subtle against polished wood. She wouldn't have noticed, except for one thing. That tone was reserved for only one person. Her daughter. She glanced down and saw it. "Mom, I'm at North Shore First. They called the cops. Said I stole the money. I'm scared. Please come, please." For a second, Celeste didn't move. She just stared. Then the stillness broke. Her jaw set. Her breath stopped. And in the blink of an eye, the composed executive the board had known for years vanished. The click of her heels as she left the room was all the warning they got. "I need my car. Now," she told her assistant, her voice low but loaded. "Cancel everything. Send my head of security, and get David on the line." The world outside blurred as the city rushed past the windows of her black Genesis sedan. Her hands, usually calm, now clutched her phone. One missed call, then another, then voicemail. She didn't need to call the bank. She didn't need confirmation. She had seen this before. Not at this scale. Not so close to home. But she knew exactly what this was. And she was done watching it happen. Across town, the North Shore First Lobby had returned to its delicate hum. The manager sipped from a water bottle. The officers stood near the door, exchanging casual words. The girl, handcuffed, quiet, sat on a cold bench in the back. Her head hung low. Her backpack sat on the floor beside her, still half-zipped, documents spilling out like discarded proof of worth. Then the front doors opened. Not slowly, not dramatically, but with an authority that shifted the very air. Celeste Collins walked in, heels sharp, frame tall, charcoal gray coat draped over her shoulders like a cape of silence. No one recognized her yet, but they felt her presence. Even Officer Wells straightened up. Ms. Cutler squinted. "Can I help?" "No," Celeste said. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "Where's my daughter?" The manager blinked. "Excuse me?" Celeste stepped closer. Her eyes didn't blink. "Amara Collins, 13, honor student, handcuffed, I presume. Where is she?" It was Officer Santos who finally spoke. "Ma'am, are you saying you're—" "I'm not saying, I'm telling. I'm her mother." A pause. Then Cutler scoffed. "Ma'am, your daughter was in possession of suspicious cash and couldn't verify—" Celeste didn't look at her. She reached into her bag, pulled out a thick white card, and placed it flat on the counter. The bank manager picked it up and froze. It read, Dr. Celeste M. Collins, Ph.D. founder, Collins Global Capital Board member, North Shore Financial Holdings. The logo glinted in embossed platinum. Suddenly, the temperature in the lobby dropped. "Your daughter," Santos tried to explain. "My daughter," Celeste interrupted, "has more money in her custodial trust than this entire branch sees in a quarter. You just cuffed the child of your largest institutional stakeholder." Silence. Then Celeste leaned in, her voice a whisper. "And you did it, without checking her name." The manager's mouth parted slightly. Her fingers trembled as she set the card back on the counter like it might burn through her skin. I didn't know. I thought—" "You thought she didn't belong," Celeste said flatly. Every syllable hung like thunder. Behind her, David Lamb, her lead counsel, stepped inside, flanked by two men in tailored suits. Their movements were quiet, their eyes sharp. Robert Knox, head of Celeste's personal security team, took one sweeping glance and nodded. 2 clicks later, he had access to the branch's internal surveillance system. "Do you have any idea," Celeste continued, "how many protocols you violated today?" "Ma'am, we were just following standard risk procedure," Officer Wells started. "You detained a minor without verifying identity. You denied her the right to call a parent. You accepted the word of a teller over a child's documented evidence because she's black and she had money." Wells stiffened. Santos looked away. "This isn't standard," Celeste said. "This is profiling. This is criminal." Cutler's voice cracked. "We had no way of knowing who she was. But you assumed what she wasn't." The room had shifted. What once was marble and glass had turned into a courtroom. Celeste stood as prosecutor, witness, and judge, the only one unshaken by the weight of what had just occurred. Behind the frosted door, Amara sat silently. She didn't know her mother had arrived. She didn't know the system that had turned on her was now unraveling at the hands of someone who'd once built it. "Ms. Collins," Santos said carefully, "your daughter hasn't been charged. If you'd like to take her home—" "No," Celeste replied. "I'd like her released, uncuffed, and walked out with an apology in front of every customer who watched this unfold." A beat passed. Then 2 officers moved toward the back. The cuffs were removed. Amara blinked in shock. Her wrists were red, her face pale. "Mom," she whispered, as she stepped into the lobby. Celeste turned toward her, and in that moment all her power, all her fire, softened. Her hands reached forward, steady and open. She didn't speak. She just held her daughter, tightly, fully, as if trying to re-knit something broken between them. Amara clung to her. "I didn't do anything," she whispered, voice cracking. "I know, baby, I know." Around them, the bank had gone still. Even customers were watching, some filming, some frozen. A young black mother in line wiped her cheek. An older man muttered, "About damn time." Then Celeste stepped back. She faced the room, the staff, the officers, the eyes. "My daughter will be fine," she said, "because she has me. But what if she didn't? What if the next child who walks through your doors doesn't come from money, doesn't have a lawyer on speed dial, doesn't have proof to erase your assumptions?" No one answered. So she kept going. "You don't get to decide who looks legitimate. You don't get to decide who deserves safety. You're not guardians of truth. You're just gatekeepers with too much fear and too little conscience." Then her eyes locked onto Cutler's. "And you'll answer for it." The business cards on the counter might as well have been detonators. Dr. Celeste Collins stood completely still, her words slicing through the artificial calm like a scalpel. Behind her, David Lamb, her lead attorney, adjusted his cufflink and silently stepped beside her, placing a thin black folder on the counter. Security footage, internal protocol documentation, a copy of Amara's trust deed. Manager Marianne Cutler hadn't spoken. Her eyes flicked down to the card again as if rereading it would change what it meant. "You didn't see a girl," Celeste said, her voice like quiet thunder. "You saw a threat." "Ms. Collins," the officer began, shifting awkwardly. "There may have been a misunderstanding." Celeste turned slowly, her gaze pinning him in place. "You put metal cuffs on a child who showed you her school ID, her statements, her birthday card, and your response was to not even look." The young officer's jaw tensed. "We were told." "No. You weren't told. You were prepared. Prepared to see a black child with cash and assume danger." David Lamb leaned in. "That assumption is now on record. The camera caught all of it, including the fact that neither of you asked her a single question before moving to arrest." Behind the front desk, Cutler finally spoke. "She was evasive. She was 13. She didn't explain." "She did." Celeste took one step closer, and suddenly the marble floor under Cutler's heels didn't feel so secure. "My daughter has more discipline and intelligence than half this staff," she said. "She's taken finance classes, volunteers on weekends, and can tell you the compound interest formula faster than you can spell your last name." Silence. Amara still hadn't been brought forward. Celeste's eyes moved to the hallway behind the front office. "She's in there, isn't she?" A nod. "I want her brought out, now." Cutler hesitated, but a look from David shut down whatever excuse she was building. Moments later, a door opened at the back of the bank. Amara stepped out slowly, her wrists red, her eyes wide and stunned, like she had just been yanked from the bottom of the ocean. The entire bank froze. Celeste didn't rush. She walked over with exact steps, knelt, and wrapped her arms around her daughter. Amara's frame collapsed into the safety she hadn't been allowed to feel all day. The sound of her crying, quiet, broken, echoed louder than anything else in the room. "You're safe now," Celeste whispered. "You did nothing wrong." Amara only nodded, still clinging. When they separated, Celeste stood, slowly, and turned to face the bank. "I came here as a mother," she said, "but now I speak as an owner. North Shore Holdings doesn't just operate banks. We build them. And after today, this one needs to be rebuilt from the inside out." Her words were quiet, but every single person in the lobby could feel them cutting down to the floor. "I want full footage pulled. I want this incident reviewed by your board. And I want her name, my daughter's name, cleared in every log, every file, every report you just tainted." The older officer cleared his throat. "There's going to be media attention." David Lamb glanced at him. "There already is." As if on cue, a bystander across the room raised their phone, still recording. Another leaned in to listen. The tension in the building had reached its snapping point, but not the end, because consequences had only just begun. The first wave hit social media before Amara and Celeste even left the building. A video, 15 seconds long, showed a crying black girl in school uniform, wrists red, flanked by officers in a high-end bank lobby. In the background, a woman in a slate gray coat stood like judgment itself, her voice echoing. She was 13. She did everything right. The clip exploded. By the time they reached the car, the hashtags had begun. # Amara deserved better. Banking while black. Celeste Collins is her mother. Inside the luxury sedan, Amara sat beside her mother in stunned silence, the cuff marks on her wrists raw and visible. The world she thought she understood, polished, polite, protected, had just collapsed around her. "Did I do something wrong?" she whispered. Celeste kept her eyes on the road. "You did everything right," she said, voice controlled but low. "And they still saw you as a threat. That's the lesson no child should ever have to learn." Outside, camera crews were already swarming the sidewalk in front of North Shore First. Inside, the damage spread like fire. The chairman of the board received the footage at home. He was halfway through a scotch when he saw Celeste's face on screen. Not just the firm's largest investor, but the public now knew her as the mother of the girl arrested on camera. His hand trembled slightly as he hit pause. Across the city, HR executives, risk officers, and PR firms began drafting statements. All too late. Celeste wasn't waiting. Within hours, her legal team had filed a civil rights complaint. David Lamb held a quiet press conference. No shouting, no threats. Just the facts, and the footage, now backed by digital forensics confirming that Amara's school ID, savings records, and even the birthday card had been ignored on site. And then came the final blow. Celeste published an open letter on Collins Global's official site. It wasn't just a statement. It was a reckoning. "My daughter, Amara, was detained not for what she did, but for what they feared she could be. She was polite, prepared, documented, and still, she was handcuffed before a single question was asked. This is what racism in modern institutions looks like. It's not always loud. It's in the silence after a black child says, 'Can I call my mom?' And the answer is no. As part owners of North Shore Holdings, we will no longer fund silence disguised as procedure." The letter went viral. Media anchors quoted it line by line. Celebrities retweeted. Educators read it aloud in classrooms. Across dinner tables and boardrooms, the conversation cracked open. How many other kids didn't have a mother like Celeste Collins? But it wasn't just talk. Within 48 hours, the CEO of North Shore First Bank resigned. 3 regional managers were suspended. And for the first time in its history, the bank's racial bias training became mandatory, immersive, and overseen by external ethics auditors. Still, not everyone was ready to shift. At an emergency board meeting, one executive asked, "Are we setting a dangerous precedent by reacting so publicly?" Celeste, seated at the end of the mahogany table, didn't flinch. "No," she said. "The precedent was set the moment you let a 13-year-old girl sit in handcuffs while her savings account sat unopened. I'm just making sure the next one doesn't have to bleed to be believed." And no one challenged her again. The bank account took 3 minutes to open. No questions. No hesitation. No raised eyebrows when Amara slid her envelope across the counter or showed her ID. The new youth services representative smiled as he verified the documents, scanned the school certificate, and entered her information with care. The welcome kit was personalized. The specialist explained everything, clearly, slowly, respectfully. But Amara barely heard it. Her eyes wandered to the wall where a new plaque had been mounted just days earlier. North Shore First, committed to equity, justice, and every child's right to be seen. She wasn't sure if she believed it yet, not fully. But she knew it wouldn't have existed without her. Outside the glass doors, reporters still lingered across the street. Protest signs had been replaced with banners thanking Celeste. But Amara wasn't interested in the cameras anymore. She was thinking about the girl she used to be. The one who had walked into this building with a backpack full of documents, a heart full of hope, and no idea how fast the world could turn against her. The difference now wasn't that she had money. It was that the world had been forced to see her. Beside her, Celeste waited patiently. She didn't rush her. She hadn't, not once, since that day. They stepped outside together. The wind brushed Amara's face. She looked up. "I still don't understand," she said softly. "Why they hated me. I didn't yell. I didn't lie. I didn't even fight." Celeste nodded. "That's the hardest part. You did nothing wrong. But racism doesn't need a reason. It only needs permission." Amara was quiet. "And now?" she asked. "What happens now?" Celeste looked toward the crowd. But her answer didn't come from there. "You write the rest." That evening, Amara sat at her desk and opened her laptop. She started with one sentence. "I was 13 when the world told me I didn't belong, but I'm still here, and I have something to say." The article was titled, "Banking While Black: What They Did to Me, and What We're Going to Change." It spread like wildfire. Students read it at assemblies. Nonprofits asked her to speak. Her story appeared in classrooms and Senate hearings. But she didn't want fame. She wanted function. So Celeste helped her start something real. The Amara Initiative launched 3 months later, a foundation built not just on outrage, but education. It offered workshops for young students on financial literacy, civil rights, and digital self-defense. It helped train bank staff across the country on unconscious bias, with youth advocates sitting at the table, not just being studied, but leading. Amara's voice grew, not louder, just clearer. She told her story not with bitterness, but precision. Not with anger, but power. In one video that went viral, she looked into the camera and said, "What happened to me was not a mistake. It was a system working exactly as it was built. So we're building something new." And people listened. But what mattered most came quietly. In moments nobody filmed. Like the time a mother from Ohio wrote, "My daughter watched your interview and said, 'She looks like me. That means I can do it too.'" Or the banker in Detroit who told his staff, "If a girl like Amara ever walks in here, we don't just serve her, we honor her." Or the classroom where a teacher pinned her article beside a map of the civil rights movement, bridging past and present in one quiet, glowing thread. Amara was no longer just the girl who'd been arrested. She was the girl who never stopped asking why. The girl who turned a wound into a warning. The girl who taught an industry to look again. And as the seasons changed, and justice rippled outward in soft, persistent waves, one truth remained. Sometimes the most powerful revolutions begin not with a protest, but with a child standing at a counter, refusing to disappear.